You're watching a clip from the Club podcast.
Make sure you follow it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and give it a 5-star review.
So here you go. Here's a lovely clip from our podcast. So Declan Rice has joined Arsenal. Yeah.
Massive.
He has joined Arsenal. How do you feel first, as a Manchester City fan, that you've missed out on him because it's been an open secret that you've been in for him?
Of course, yeah.
Trying to make a deal happen, trying to ease up in Arsenal's direction and get the player. Now he's gone to Arsenal. How do you feel?
Well, I'm gutted on one level because I think he was there for the signing. I think there's a gap in our squad for a potentially world-class midfielder now that İlkay Gundogan has gone. I think there's a midfielder there. I think his versatility at City would have helped in terms of playing a centre-back as well. He's good on the ball. He can play anywhere, really, in midfield. So I'm a bit gutted by that. I'm a bit gutted about my Twitter as well, because my Twitter was banging. Because obviously Arsenal looked like they were going to bottle the signing. They bottled the league last season, and they've gone over the line and actually signed. I think it's a massively important signing for that
Hold on, that
club.
means now your Twitter is going to be popping.
I'm deleting Twitter
because
now.
you're going to have loads of Arsenal fans messaging you like, you're wrong, you mug.
I've muted them all, so I wouldn't be able to see any of it. So, I think Arsenal need leadership. They need an English spine. I think you can't assign a value to having an England almost borderline captain, a leader figure playing for Arsenal in midfield. I think it's massive.
How is he worth the fee that they're paying for him? This is big money now.
Yeah, he is. He is. He's on a long-term deal. Basically, it breaks down close to kind of £20 million a season. That's how I justify the Jack Grealish signing. If he stays at City for 5-6 years, you break it down per season. If Declan Rice helps Arsenal win the Premier League at any stage within 4 or 5 years, it's worth its weight in gold, in my opinion. And obviously, we know how Arteta loves to be a kind of Guardiola light. The same thing applies for Arteta. He can play Declan Rice anywhere in midfield. He could push him forward with Odegaard. He could drop him back to replace Partey, potentially. And of course, in an emergency situation, he could even drop him as a centre-back.
It's a lot of money though, man. I think 100 million just getting thrown right. Look, I know some players have gone, and if you look at some certain players, you go, well, if Harry Maguire's worth 80 million, then Declan Rice is probably worth more than 100 million. Or, you start saying if he's worth that much, then he's worth that much. But then you look at some other players and you go, actually, if you've bought him for that much, how have they managed to get that? There's also that English tax though as well, because all of the money's in England. You have those big benefits in terms of squad registration and all those kind of things with homegrown players. And yeah, just English talent have that premium at the moment. No other real, very little. Very rarely you're going to see Real Madrid signing like a top English talent. I know they've just signed Jude Bellingham, but I mean from an English club. So you've really just got all these kind of big English clubs with big budgets kind of fighting each other for these signings, and it pushes the price up. When Jude Bellingham goes, I only want to go to Real Madrid. All right, Dortmund are a bit stuffed now because we can only get X amount for him. We can't add that extra 40 million we would have added. And I think that's what happens when Premier League teams are selling Declan Rice and Man City and Arsenal and Man United and all these teams on them. All right, we want double, actually, and they can get it. And I also think, all right, he might not be worth 100 million to us on paper as we look at it. He's worth 100 million to West Ham, because they would have gone down if they didn't have him over the last few years.
And he's probably the third most important captain ever. He won European silverware.
He's only the third.
He drove them on to win Europe. West Ham won European silverware.
Do you know who the other ones are?
No,
Bobby Moore.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And Billy.
Oh,
Bonds?
yeah, no.
Billy Bonds. His name? Billy Bonds.
Yeah, I know. I think I know what you mean.
I feel like that name's right, but he also sounds like a baseball player.
Billy Bonds.
Billy Bonds.
Never heard of him.
He was No, he was. He did play for West Ham, and he did. I don't know. I think it was. Anyway. But huge signing for Arsenal.
Yeah.
You've obviously got the departure of Xhaka. Partey's looking like he could go.
Well, those two players, whatever you say about them.
Is their midfield in a stronger position with Partey and Xhaka leaving and Rice coming in?
If they all stay fit, him, Odegaard, as much as we hate to say it, Havertz as well. That is a nice midfield if it all clicks, it's balanced there.
Havertz as a midfielder?
I think he will be playing in midfield. He's not good enough to play anywhere else. So I think they're going to try and make him into that left-sided attacking midfielder. But I think Partey, he flopped last season. I think he showed the lack of leadership that Declan Rice showed at the back end of last season. Xhaka, for me, always overrated. Never world-class, never get in there. But he was a vocal leader. So whatever you say about the quality of Declan Rice, and Arsenal could still sign more players, he's a leader more than Partey for me.
I agree with that. But I do think at the same time, you need to kind of he could be the replacement for Xhaka as the 8, or he could be a replacement for Partey as a 6. Like he could do either of those.
Is this issue that you might have to do both?
If Xhaka,
that's
but then if Xhaka and Partey, are you bringing someone else in? I know they've been linked with Moises Caicedo. They've been linked with a few other players. I think you still need to bring that other one in. You've also got to factor in the expectation levels are going to rise now for him. There's going to be a magnifying glass on every single performance. There's been times when West Ham, all right, we've kind of credited him being a big part of why they've stayed up and won a trophy and that in the last couple of years. But also, this is a team that struggles every week, is battling against relegation. And it's easier to get away with performances when you're playing for West Ham and you're the big fish in the little pond than when you go to Manchester City or Arsenal, as we're seeing now.
Yeah.
And now you've got to, perform in front of these fans, in front of the media.
And certain YouTube channels.
Yeah, and certain YouTube channels. The scrutiny is much higher. Do you know what I mean? And when you've got all that going on, that may have an impact on his performance. He's obviously joining a club that's in a happy place at the moment. But how long is that going to last?
It
With
can
the new
turn
added
quickly,
expectation.
It can turn
what
quickly.
I mean? So things could change very quickly. But I do think it's a good signing, a great signing, in fact, if accompanied with someone else. And I've got to admit, I never expected to see him go Arsenal. You must have thought surely Man City.
I thought we had him sewn up 100%. I think maybe we should just quickly talk about his qualities as a player because he is very good on the ball. The one player I always had an eye on when City played West Ham, he was the one player that had the ability to carry the ball through midfield at the same level as Ilkay Gundogan, at the same level as De Bruyne. So I think Arsenal will be very happy that they've signed someone that is technically as gifted as Declan Rice.
I also think, being able to play, I think at West Ham he was kind of asked to do a more defensive job. It'd be interesting to see, is he asked to do a more attacking role and then kind of seeing how he develops into that.
Would you be worried?
He's spending more time in the opposition's half now than in front of his own defence.
Would you be worried about his goal scoring record? It's something like 1 in 10, 1 in 11 kind of average goals.
He's never struck me as someone that misses a lot of chances though. So maybe if you're in the positions to score more, he'll naturally score more goals.
Is he 20
he's
season?
On the edge no.
Even if he's pushed higher up with protection behind him?
I don't think he'll...
So what do you base it on? He's not good enough at finishing? Because that's a massive
No,
fact
I didn't say that. I said I've never looked at him and thought he's a bad finisher. Because you've never seen him always getting chances. He scored a few goals, a few very good goals. But, maybe when he plays for a bigger team and he's in the final third a little bit more and you're dominating 60, 70, 80% of possession in periods of the game, you're going to have more time on the edge of the box. You're going to be able to score more goals. It's just natural. I don't think he'll ever score 20 goals plus. So I don't think he's that kind of guy. I think he's more about breaking it up and moving it on. He'd have been a great signing for Man United alongside Casemiro.
Almost for any, I think Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs, all these top clubs are going to miss out on someone that now goes to Arsenal. And a big factor about the deal for Arsenal is they shore up a transfer that stops City, stops everyone else getting him. That's a massive factor that we have to talk about.
Who would you rather have, Bellingham or Rice?
Bellingham is in a whole different world to Declan Rice. He's a whole different kind of player.
With that being said, isn't the price a bit mad?
It's crazy. He's not worth 100 plus mil. He's not. But you're getting that kind of security. He's closer to. I think he's closer to Calvin Phillips. I think there was a period a couple of years ago there was no distinction between the two. There wasn't.
Oh, I don't know. I think he's.
I'm talking about when they played in the Euros. They're both playing for Leeds and West Ham. They're finishing. I think Leeds probably finished close to West Ham in the league table. And then Calvin Phillips was better at the Euros for me than Declan Rice in terms of he even won England Player of the Year that year. So I think he's closer to Calvin Phillips than he is to Jude Bellingham.
I get what you're saying, but I think he's twice the player Calvin Phillips is.
Right now, because of a different year. Because a year can change things.
I know what you mean. At that time in the England team, they were both starting
side-to-side defensive midfilders with a little bit of a range of passing. Jude Bellingham is everything else. What does he
need to do more of to be a success at Arsenal?
I don't know. I think his finishing actually does have to improve. I really do. I think he gets into... He's one of those, those kind of players that get into the nice goal-scoring opportunities, 20 yards out, 25 yards out. He hits the target and it looks good and it makes a save, it hits the crossbar. But there's a gap between that and then the Steven Gerrards, the Zidane, the Kakas.
We're talking about...
He has to hit the corners of the goal.
I don't think that's Odegaard's job to score the goals.
Yeah, but he's been
midfield.
signed to Arsenal. He needs to add that to his
How many
game.
goals did Xhaka score in a season? Do you know what I mean? I think he has to score that many, and I think he can.
I think he can score way more than Xhaka, and the reason that Arsenal arguably didn't win the league last season is because Xhaka was so limited in midfield, in my opinion.
Then that's fine then, isn't it? Because if you think he can score more than Xhaka, then they're onto a winner. Because he's replacing Xhaka.
But I think the question is, can he do that? I think he has to improve his goal scoring ability, in my opinion.
I think he's a big signing, but you still need a lot more alongside him. And I don't think you can be signing him and expecting him to be the difference between Arsenal finishing second and first. I think you still need a little bit more.
They need
a huge coup for Arsenal.
Yeah.